Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world that most of us would rather forget. A stark contrast to the grandeur we often associate with ancient Rome. Forget the marble temples, the intricate mosaics, and the echoes of triumphant legions. Tonight, you're not a patrician lounging in a villa, nor a senator debating in the forum. No, tonight, you're about to experience the grit, the hunger, and the crushing despair that was the daily reality for countless souls dwelling in the shadowed alleys and forgotten corners of the eternal city. It's a life so disturbingly harsh, so relentlessly unforgiving, that you probably wouldn't survive a single Roman sunrise in their shoes. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the cold, damp stone against your back, a familiar comfort in its harshness. It's still dark, the pre-dawn chill clinging to the narrow alleyway, carrying with it the stench of refuse, stale wine, and unwashed bodies. You pull the ragged length of your stola tighter around your shoulders, a futile attempt to ward off the biting air. This isn't the finely woven wool of a citizen, but a tattered collection of scraps, barely holding together, stained with the grime of countless days and nights spent on the unforgiving streets. Your stomach growls, a hollow, persistent ache that has become a constant companion, more reliable than any friend you've ever known. It's a hunger that gnaws at your very bones, reminding you of your place at the absolute bottom of Rome's meticulously structured society. You are a beggar, a mendicant, one of the countless unseen shadows flitting through the dazzling, cruel light of the Roman Empire. As the first faint streaks of gray lighten the eastern sky, painting the upper reaches of the multi-story insula with a fleeting, dirty glow, the city begins to stir. You hear the creak of cartwheels on cobblestones, the distant bleating of a goat, and the growing murmur of voices as the city's inhabitants awaken. For you, this awakening isn't a promise of opportunity, but a prelude to another day of desperate pleas and hopeful glances. You shift, your joints protesting with a dull ache. Sleep never truly comes. Not in the sense that those in warm beds understand it. It's more of a restless stupor, a brief reprieve from the gnawing reality, punctuated by the scuttling of rats, the drunken shouts of late-night revelers, and the constant fear of being trampled or worse. Your chosen spot, just off a bustling vicus leading towards the Forum, is strategically vital. It's close enough to the main thoroughfare to catch the attention of passers-by, but far enough into the alley to offer a semblance of shelter and a quick escape route should trouble arise. You've learned these nuances through bitter experience. The prime spots, the ones right outside the temples or the lavish homes of the wealthy, are already claimed, often by older, more established beggars, or by those with a network of protection, a dangerous concept in your world. To challenge them would be folly, leading only to a beating, or worse, a permanent removal from your meager territory. You've seen it happen. You've seen it. Your belongings are few, the clothes on your back, a small, cracked clay bowl for alms, and the unyielding weight of your own existence. There's no family waiting for you, no warm hearth to return to. Perhaps there once was. In a life so distant it feels like a dream. Maybe you were a farmer, driven from your land by debt or war. Perhaps you were a slave, cast out when you became too old or infirm to be profitable. Or maybe, like so many others, you were simply born into this endless cycle of destitution, inheriting nothing but the cold embrace of the Roman streets. The historians still debate the precise proportion of Rome's population that lived in abject poverty. But it's clear that a significant segment, perhaps a quarter or more, lived on the knife edge of survival, with many slipping into the abyss you now inhabit. This common historical fact about Roman society, its vast social stratification, takes on a very different, very personal meaning when you are living at its lowest rung. As the morning light strengthens, painting the forum in a deceptive golden glow, you push yourself to a sitting position, your back against the grimy wall. The cobbles are still slick with dew, or perhaps something less benign. You position your bowl carefully, almost ritualistically, at your feet. It's a silent invitation, a visual plea that speaks volumes without a single word. You lower your gaze, not in shame, but in practiced humility. Direct eye contact can be perceived as aggressive, or worse, as an insult to those who hold power over your very existence. You've honed this posture, this silent appeal, over countless days. Your shoulders slump, your head bowed, eyes fixed on the dirty stones before you. It's an act, yes, but one born of genuine desperation. The first few hours are the hardest. The streets are filled with slaves hurrying to their masters' homes, merchants setting up their stalls, and early risers making their way to the baths or the forum. Most avert their gaze, their faces carefully blank. Some give you a wide berth, as if your poverty is a contagious disease. You hear snippets of conversation, fragments of lives so impossibly distant from your own. Did you hear about the new gladiator games? My patron is hosting a feast tonight, the finest Falernian wine. These words drift over you, light as feathers, yet they land with the crushing weight of stones, highlighting the vast chasm between your world and theirs. It's a weird detail, but did you know that some Roman elites would actually perfume their clothes with expensive oils? A stark contrast to the omnipresent stench you endure. It just underscores the vast differences in their daily experiences. A group of toga-clad men, likely minor officials or aspiring lawyers, stride past, their voices loud and boisterous. One of them, catching sight of you, sneers. Lazy dog, get a job. He spits, narrowly missing your bowl. You flinch, but quickly compose yourself. Such insults are commonplace, the small, sharp barbs of contempt that punctuate your day. To react would be to invite trouble, to confirm their perception of you as a nuisance, a blight on their idealized vision of Rome. You remain still, a statue of misery, hoping your stillness will render you invisible, or perhaps evoke a flicker of pity. Pity is your currency, your fragile hope for survival. You don't ask for much, just enough to stave off the worst of the hunger, enough to maybe buy a stale piece of bread or a handful of olives. You know that for every 100 people who pass by, perhaps one, if you're lucky, will drop a small coin into your bowl. It might be a quadrans, the smallest bronze coin, barely enough to buy anything of substance. Or, on a truly miraculous day, an ass, which might get you a small measure of cheap wine. The truly wealthy, the senators and equestrians, rarely venture into these grimy alleys. And when they do, they are typically surrounded by their retinue, their eyes fixed firmly on their destination, oblivious to the human detritus at their feet. This leads to a fascinating academic debate. Did the Roman state have any formal welfare systems? Beyond sporadic private charity or grain doles for citizens, historians still debate the effectiveness and reach of such provisions, especially for non-citizens or the truly marginalized. As the sun climbs higher, warming the air but doing little to penetrate the chill in your bones, the rhythmic clatter of feet on the cobblestones becomes a dull roar. The sounds of Rome are a constant, overwhelming symphony, the cries of street vendors hawking their wares. Fish sauce, fresh fish sauce. Hot bread, get your hot bread. The shouts of mule drivers, the clang of tools from a nearby smithy, the incessant chatter of the crowds. It's a cacophony that both overwhelms and isolates you. You are in the city, but not of it. You exist on its periphery, a silent observer of a life you can only dream of. You watch as a young woman, likely a slave, hurries past, a basket of fresh produce balanced on her head. Her eyes, for a fleeting moment, meet yours. There's no pity, no judgment, just a flicker of something akin to recognition, a shared understanding of lives lived on the margins. She looks away quickly, perhaps fearing a reprimand from her master if she lingers. But that brief connection, that momentary acknowledgement of your humanity, is a rare and precious thing, a tiny spark in the crushing darkness. It reminds you that not everyone is blind to your existence, even if most choose to ignore it. The hours drag on, an agonizing crawl. Your back aches, your legs cramp, and the hunger intensifies, a sharp, twisting pain. You resist the urge to constantly check your bowl, to appear too eager, too desperate. Might deter potential benefactors. You maintain the posture, the quiet dignity of one who has nothing left but their silent appeal. You hear the rhythmic chanting of a group of street performers nearby. A common sight in Rome, trying to draw a crowd. Sometimes, their music or stories can distract you from your own plight. A brief, fleeting escape. But mostly, it just serves as another reminder of the vibrant, inaccessible life happening all around you. A shadow falls over you. You look up cautiously, your eyes still cast down. A pair of worn leather sandals stand before you. Slowly, carefully, a hand extends, and a small copper coin clinks into your bowl. You look up slightly, just enough to see the face of the giver. It's an old man, his face deeply lined, his clothes simple but clean. He offers a small, sad smile, a gesture of shared understanding. Perhaps. He doesn't say anything, just nods almost imperceptibly, and then shuffles away, disappearing into the throng. It's a tiny victory, a moment of grace that reminds you that not all hearts in Rome are made of stone. This small act of charity, a single quadrans, means you might eat tonight. It's a meager sum. But in your world, it's everything. You clutch the coin, its rough surface surprisingly warm in your cold fingers. It's a lifeline, a temporary reprieve from the gnawing emptiness. But the day is far from over, and one coin is rarely enough. You must continue your silent vigil, your persistent, desperate plea to the bustling, indifferent city. The sun is now high in the sky, beating down on the crowded streets. The smell of the city intensifies. Sweat, refuse, the distant aroma of baking bread, an agonizing torment to your empty stomach. You close your eyes for a moment, wishing, as you often do, for the night to return, for the brief, restless oblivion of sleep. The afternoon brings a slight lull in the crowds, as many Romans retreat indoors to escape the midday heat. This is a quieter time for begging, often less fruitful. You might try moving to a different spot, perhaps near a public fountain where people gather to fill their water jugs. But moving carries its own risks, encountering other beggars who resent your intrusion, or drawing the unwanted attention of the vigils. Rome's watchmen, who have little patience for the destitute. It's a constant calculation, a delicate balance between opportunity and danger. One silly thought that often crosses your mind is how much easier this would be if people just left their money lying around, like crumbs for pigeons. A ludicrous thought, of course, but your mind, starved of proper nourishment, sometimes wanders to such absurdities. You hear the rumble of a grand carriage, its wheels larger and more ornate than the common carts. It's likely a wealthy Roman, perhaps a senator or a powerful merchant. Returning from a morning at the forum, or a visit to a client, you quickly lower your head, making yourself as small and inconspicuous as possible. These individuals, with their vast power and influence, can be capricious. A passing fancy, a moment of irritation, could lead to a severe beating by their bodyguards, or even worse, being rounded up and forced into grueling labor, perhaps in the mines or on a public works project, effectively a death sentence. Your best defense is invisibility. To merge with the shadows. To become just another forgotten piece of the city's scenery. The thought of food is a constant obsession. Not lavish feasts, not exotic delicacies, but simple, plain sustenance. A loaf of panis quadratus, the common Roman bread, even stale and hard. A handful of lentils, a few dried figs. These are the luxuries of your dreams. You remember, vaguely, the taste of fresh water, cool and clean. Now you mostly drink from communal fountains, or worse, from puddles in the alley, risking illness with every desperate sip. The constant battle against thirst is almost as relentless as the fight against hunger. The sheer lack of options, the complete absence of control over your most basic needs, is a profound and soul-crushing weight. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple, the city's rhythm shifts once more. People begin to return from their daily pursuits, heading home for the evening meal. This is often a more generous time. As Romans, perhaps feeling more relaxed after a day's work or an evening bath, might be more inclined to offer alms. You try to summon what little energy you have left to maintain your posture, to project an image of quiet suffering rather than aggressive demand. The street lamps, fueled by oil, begin to flicker to life, casting long, dancing shadows that make the alleyways even more foreboding. You count the coins in your bowl. One is 2 quadrans, not much, but enough for a small, hard piece of bread from a baker who takes pity on you. Or perhaps a handful of scraps from a nearby tavern. It's a testament to your endurance, your silent perseverance. Another day survived. Another night potentially fed. The cold grip of hunger loosens slightly, replaced by a flicker of cautious hope. You gather your meager possessions, your cracked bowl, and your tattered stola, preparing to find a quiet corner to eat your solitary meal before settling down for another restless night. The city's sounds begin to soften, the shouts becoming murmurs, the footsteps less hurried. Darkness slowly, mercifully, envelops the Roman streets once more. The first sliver of dawn, a gray smear above the towering apartment blocks, finds you already awake. The cold of the alleyway having long since chased away any lingering vestiges of sleep. Your stomach is a hollow drum, protesting the meager fare of last night. A few mouthfuls of stale bread, perhaps a shriveled fig if you were exceptionally lucky. It was enough to quiet the most immediate pangs. But the underlying chronic hunger is a constant companion, a dull ache that has woven itself into the fabric of your very being. You shiver, pulling your tattered cloak tighter, its thin fabric offering little defense against the pre-dawn chill. This isn't the soft, luxurious wool that Roman citizens might drape themselves in. It's a patchwork of worn threads, stained with the grime of the city, an outward manifestation of your internal emptiness. You rise slowly, your joints protesting with creaks and groans that seem to echo the ancient stones around you. Every movement is deliberate, conserving the precious energy you possess. Your bed was a discarded mat, perhaps once used by a street vendor, now providing the only slight barrier between your aching bones and the unforgiving cobblestones. The air is thick with the pervasive smells of Rome, the sharp tang of human waste, the sweetness of rotting fruit from overflowing bins, the metallic scent of damp earth. These are the perfumes of your world, a constant assault on your senses, yet so familiar they are almost comforting in their grim regularity. Your first order of business is water. Thirst is a more immediate torment than hunger in these early hours. You shuffle towards the nearest public fountain, a small, unassuming structure tucked away near a bustling vicus. Even at this hour, a few others are already there, a couple of slaves filling amphorae for their master's morning ablutions, an old woman with a cracked pitcher. You wait patiently, your small, chipped clay cup clutched in your hand, its rim worn smooth from countless uses. When it's your turn, you cup your hand beneath the steady stream, letting the cool water wash away some of the grit from your mouth and throat. It's a simple luxury, a momentary respite. You drink slowly, savoring each drop, knowing it might be hours before your next opportunity. With your thirst momentarily quenched, your thoughts turn to the day's strategy. Where will you position yourself? The prime spots near the forum or the temples are already taken, often by younger, stronger, or more organized beggars who might belong to informal guilds or be protected by petty thugs. You learned long ago not to challenge them. Instead, you seek the edges, the less frequented pathways where the flow of people is thinner but perhaps more sympathetic. Today, you decide to try the approach to the Porticus Octaviae, a grand colonnade that often sees merchants, scholars, and the occasional well-to-do citizen passing by. It's a risk. The guards there can be particularly vigilant about maintaining the appearance of order, but the potential reward, a stray denarius perhaps, is too tempting to ignore. As you begin your slow shuffle towards your chosen spot, the city fully awakens around you. The cacophony of Rome swells the shouts of street vendors hawking their wares. Fresh bread, still warm from the oven, olives, plump and green, the rhythmic clatter of donkeys pulling carts laden with goods, the cheerful, if sometimes drunken, songs of early morning revelers returning from a night out. You navigate the narrow, winding streets, keeping to the shadows, your eyes constantly scanning, not for trouble, but for opportunity. A dropped coin, a discarded crust of bread, anything that might ease the gnawing emptiness. It's a constant, low-level vigilance, a testament to the precariousness of your existence. You reach the Porticus Octaviae, its imposing columns rising majestically against the brightening sky, a stark contrast to your own diminished state. You find a spot near one of the less trafficked entrances, positioning yourself against a cool marble column. You settle into your familiar posture, head bowed, eyes fixed on the dirty pavement, your small, empty bowl placed carefully before you, your ragged clothes, smelling faintly of sweat and dirt. Are your uniform? Your silent plea. You are a living testament to misfortune, a stark reminder of the fragile line that separates comfort from destitution in this bustling metropolis. The first few hours are, as always, a test of patience and endurance. People flow past like a river, their faces a blur of indifference. Some glance at you, their expressions fleeting, pity, disgust, sometimes a flicker of fear. Most simply avert their eyes, pretending you don't exist, as if acknowledging your presence might somehow contaminate their gilded lives. You hear the rustle of fine togas, the soft slap of expensive sandals, the murmur of conversations about business, politics, and social engagements. These sounds are a cruel symphony, a constant reminder of the world you are forever excluded from. A group of boisterous young men, their voices loud with wine and laughter from a night of revelry, stumble past. One of them, catching sight of you, stops. "Look, a philosopher," he slurs, gesturing dramatically, contemplating the meaning of hunger. "Are we?" His friends laugh, a harsh, mocking sound. You remain still, your gaze unwavering, your face a mask of practiced stoicism. To react would be to invite further ridicule, perhaps even violence. A common historical truth is that Roman society, while charitable in some contexts, often viewed the able-bodied poor with suspicion and disdain, associating poverty with laziness or moral failing. This societal attitude made your daily struggle all the more dehumanizing. You silently endure, waiting for them to move on, for the momentary spotlight of their cruel attention to shift elsewhere. Suddenly, a small worn sestertius clinks into your bowl. You look up, surprised. A woman, her face partially veiled, hurries past, her eyes not meeting yours. She's not richly dressed, perhaps a freedwoman or a skilled artisan, Her hand had moved quickly, almost furtively, as if she didn't want to be seen extending charity. This small act of anonymous kindness is a rare gem, a spark of humanity in the cold indifference of the city. A sestertius. That's enough for a proper meal, perhaps even a cheap mug of watered wine. A true luxury. You clutch the coin, its metallic coolness a comforting weight in your palm. It's a fleeting moment of relief, a brief respite from the relentless grind. It's a strange detail. But often, the middle and lower classes, those closer to the edge of poverty themselves, were more likely to offer small alms than the truly wealthy. Perhaps they understood, even vaguely, the precariousness of life. The day wears on, marked by the shifting light and the changing rhythm of the city. The mid-morning crowds thicken as citizens head to the forum for business, to the baths for relaxation, or to visit their patrons. This is your best chance, your most fertile ground. You observe the flow of people, trying to identify those who might be more inclined to charity: an older woman, perhaps, or a couple with young children. You avoid eye contact with soldiers or the vigils, Rome's urban police force, who could easily arrest you for vagrancy or disturbing the peace. Your very presence is a transgression in their ordered world. You hear the distant shouts of a public auction, the lowing of cattle being driven through the streets, the rhythmic hammer blows from a nearby construction site. Rome is a city of constant activity, a vibrant, chaotic organism. But you are apart from it, an anchor of stillness in its swirling currents. Your world shrinks to the immediate vicinity of your outstretched hand and your empty bowl. Every passing footstep holds the promise of sustenance or the sting of rejection. A merchant, his face red and flushed, stops abruptly before you. "Out of the way, old man!" he barks, his voice thick with irritation. "You're blocking the path." He kicks at your bowl, sending it skittering across the pavement, the single sestertius rolling away and disappearing into a drain. Your heart sinks. It's a common occurrence, the casual cruelty of those who view you as nothing more than an impediment. You scramble, desperately, your fingers scrabbling at the grimy grates. But the coin is gone, swallowed by the city's depths. Your momentary triumph, your brief flicker of hope, is extinguished, replaced by a cold wave of despair. It's a harsh joke that often comes to mind for all their engineering prowess. The Romans apparently hadn't perfected coin-catching drains. You retreat to your spot, disheartened but not broken. This is the rhythm of your life, fleeting moments of hope, crushed by overwhelming indifference or outright cruelty. You retrieve your empty bowl, placing it back in its position, a silent testament to your enduring need. The sun climbs to its zenith, beating down with a fierce intensity. The marble columns around you shimmer in the heat. You can feel the sweat trickling down your back, mixing with the grime. Thirst begins to set in again, a dry rasp in your throat. The afternoon brings a familiar lethargy. The crowds thin, the heat presses down, and the energy of the city seems to wane. This is the time for a desperate kind of foraging. You might scrounge for discarded scraps near the bakeries, hoping to find a forgotten crust, or perhaps linger near the public baths, where the wealthy sometimes discard half-eaten snacks. It's a humbling, often humiliating, pursuit. But hunger is a relentless master. You've learned to swallow your pride, to ignore the looks of disgust or pity from those who witness your desperate scavenging. One thing that historians still hotly debate is the exact nature of Roman charity. Was it a genuine act of compassion, a religious duty, or simply a way for the wealthy to display their status and benevolence? This ongoing academic discussion offers little comfort to you now. As you sift through refuse for a single edible scrap, you are living the practical, brutal reality of that debate. You might find a discarded fruit peel, or a bone with a few meager shreds of meat still clinging to it. These are your treasures, savored slowly, meticulously, extracting every last calorie. As evening approaches, the city awakens again, but with a different energy. The air cools, and the crowds are less hurried, more leisurely. This is the time when Romans might stroll with their families or gather in taverns. You position yourself near a popular colpona, a Roman inn, hoping that the warmth of wine and good company might loosen the purse strings of its patrons. The smells emanating from the inn are a torture roasted meats, pungent cheeses, the sweet aroma of wine. Your stomach growls in protest. A violent, painful rumble. You notice a group of soldiers, off duty, their armor gleaming faintly in the twilight, heading towards the inn. You quickly lower your gaze, making yourself as unobtrusive as possible. Soldiers can be dangerous, prone to casual brutality, especially after a few drinks. You hold your breath, hoping they pass by without incident. One of them, a burly man with a scarred face, actually tosses a small coin into your bowl without breaking stride. A tiny, almost imperceptible act of unexpected kindness. It's not much, perhaps a quadrans, but it's something. You breathe a silent sigh of relief. The night deepens. The sounds of the city grow quieter, replaced by the distant baying of dogs and the occasional drunken shout. Your body aches. Your mind is dulled by exhaustion and hunger. You collect your meager earnings for the day, a few quadrans, perhaps in as if you were lucky. It's not enough to truly satisfy your hunger, but it's enough to survive another night. You retreat to your usual spot in the alley, huddling against the cold stone, pulling your tattered cloak around you. The city, in its vastness and indifference, prepares for sleep, and so do you. Another day spent existing on the fringes of its magnificent, brutal reality. The first hint of dawn often arrives not with light, but with the subtle shift in the air, a colder, damper breath that chills you to the bone. You stir from a fitful sleep, less a state of rest, and more a brief respite from the relentless gnawing of hunger and the constant awareness of your surroundings. Your body protests, a chorus of aches and stiffness from another night spent on hard, unforgiving ground. The discarded mat you'd found offered little comfort, serving only to remind you that even the meanest comforts were fleeting. You pull the tattered remnants of your cloak tighter, its thin fabric a poor shield against the pervasive Roman chill. The air hangs heavy with the familiar city smells, stale refuse, damp earth, and the distant, acrid tang of wood smoke from early morning hearths. Your mind, even dulled by exhaustion, immediately shifts to the day's most pressing concern: food. The few meager coins you earned yesterday, perhaps enough for a small, hard piece of bread, were consumed hours ago. Now, the hunger is back. A deep, persistent ache that vibrates through your entire being. Your stomach feels like a hollow cavern, echoing with emptiness. You push yourself up, slowly, carefully, every movement a deliberate act of conservation, as if too much haste might somehow deplete the last vestiges of your strength. The early morning hours are a critical time for the desperate art of begging. You know that the city's rhythm is your rhythm. As citizens begin their day, hurrying to their baths, their patrons' homes, or the forum for business, there's a window of opportunity. People are often more harried, more focused on their own routines, and thus, paradoxically, sometimes more likely to toss a small coin to avoid interruption or guilt. But it's also when the vigiles, Rome's urban police, are most active, ensuring the city maintains its semblance of order. Your presence, a ragged figure slumped against a wall, is often seen as a disruption. You decide to try a new location today, a spot near the bustling Macellum Liviae, the great market of Livia, located just outside the Esquiline Gate. It's a gamble. Markets are chaotic, filled with noise and activity, and often heavily guarded by market overseers or their enforcers. But they also offer the tantalizing possibility of discarded food scraps, dropped coins, or even, on rare occasions, the pity of a generous vendor. You begin your slow, deliberate shuffle through the awakening streets, your eyes constantly scanning the ground, hoping for a stray coin or a dropped piece of fruit. The sounds of the city swell around you as you move. The creak of ox carts, the distant bleating of sheep being driven to market, the shouts of early morning vendors setting up their stalls. The air fills with the aroma of freshly baked bread, roasting meats, and exotic spices from the market, a cruel torment to your empty stomach. You pass by imposing insulae, multi-story apartment buildings, their lower floors bustling with workshops and taverns, their upper windows still dark. You imagine the lives lived within, lives of warmth, regular meals, and soft beds, a stark contrast to your own cold, hungry existence. As you near the market, the crowds thicken. The noise becomes a roaring cacophony of human voices, animal sounds, and the clatter of goods. You find a small alcove near one of the market entrances, slightly out of the main flow of traffic, but still visible. You settle into your familiar posture, your head bowed, your small, cracked bowl placed before you. Your ragged appearance is your silent, eloquent plea. You have no words, no elaborate stories of misfortune. Your very being speaks volumes. It's a curious historical detail. But some beggars in ancient Rome would actually perform their afflictions, exaggerating their lameness or blindness to elicit greater sympathy. You, however, lack the energy for such theatrics. Your genuine misery is enough. Hours pass in a blur of footsteps and murmurs. Most people hurry by, their eyes fixed firmly ahead, oblivious to your presence. You watch, an invisible observer, as merchants haggle loudly over prices, as women gossip while examining bolts of cloth, as children chase each other through the crowd, their laughter ringing out, carefree and bright. The sheer abundance of food displayed in the market is an agonizing sight. Mounds of fresh fruit, baskets overflowing with vegetables, cuts of meat hanging from hooks. Your stomach twists in painful protest. You swallow hard, trying to control the saliva building in your mouth. Suddenly, a small, round object bounces near your bowl. You look down to see a plump, ripe fig. Your eyes dart up. A young boy, no older than 7 or 8, stands a few feet away, watching you with wide, curious eyes. He points to the fig, then smiles shyly before his mother pulls him away, scolding him gently. You pick up the fig, its skin slightly bruised but otherwise perfect. It's a gift. A small act of spontaneous generosity. You bite into it, the sweet, soft flesh a burst of flavor that momentarily overwhelms the emptiness in your stomach. It's a rare, unexpected moment of grace, a reminder that not all hearts are hardened by the city's indifference. This interaction makes you ponder a fascinating historical question that scholars still debate: what was the true extent of Roman private charity, especially towards the truly destitute, those outside the clientela system? Was it driven by religious piety, social obligation, or a genuine sense of compassion? This scholarly debate doesn't fill your stomach, but it underlines the precariousness of your current meal, a fleeting act of individual kindness, not a systemic safety net. As the sun climbs higher, the market grows even more frenetic. The noise level is almost unbearable, a constant assault on your ears. The smells mingle, a rich, heady mix that, despite your hunger, begins to feel overwhelming. You see a group of market guards, burly men with stern faces, moving slowly through the crowd, their eyes scanning for trouble. You shrink back into your alcove, trying to become as small and invisible as possible. Drawing their attention would be disastrous. They have little patience for beggars, often viewing them as petty criminals or public nuisances. A sharp crack of a whip, a harsh shout, and you could be dragged away, perhaps to a public work gang, a fate almost certainly worse than slow starvation. You hear a commotion nearby, a sudden burst of shouts and angry voices. A thief has been caught, attempting to snatch a purse. The crowd surges, eager for the spectacle. The thief is quickly apprehended, beaten by market guards, and then dragged away, his cries fading into the general din. It's a stark reminder of the harsh justice of Rome, and the constant danger that lurks in its crowded streets. You are a law-abiding citizen, in your own way. But your very existence on the streets puts you at risk of being lumped in with the truly criminal elements. The midday heat begins to press down, stifling and humid. The market activity slows slightly as people seek respite indoors, or in the shade. This is when your energy levels truly begin to flag. The initial surge of hope from the fig has long since faded, replaced by the persistent ache of hunger and the dull throbbing in your head. You close your eyes for a moment, seeking a brief escape. But the sounds and smells of the market pierce through your eyelids. Your world is one of relentless sensory overload, yet profound isolation. You notice a discarded piece of tough, leathery bread lying near a vendor's stall. It's been trodden on, covered in dust and grime, but it's still bread. You wait until the vendor is distracted, then quickly, furtively, reach out and snatch it, pulling it close. You brush off the worst of the dirt, then break off a piece, chewing slowly, meticulously, trying to extract every last morsel of sustenance. It's hard and flavorless, but it's food, and it briefly quiets the angry rumbling in your stomach. You've learned to be grateful for even the smallest, most unappetizing scraps. As the afternoon wears on, the shadows lengthen, and the air begins to cool slightly. The market begins to thin out, the vendors packing up their remaining goods. This is another prime time for scavenging, as discarded produce or half-eaten snacks might be left behind. You move cautiously through the emptying stalls, your eyes sweeping the ground like a hawk. You might find a bruised apple, a few overripe grapes, or even a discarded fish head with a bit of meat still clinging to the bone. These small finds are crucial, adding precious calories to your meager diet. You stumble upon a small group of children playing in a deserted corner of the market, kicking a worn leather ball. Their laughter, light and carefree, is a sharp contrast to the grim reality of your own life. One of the children, a girl with bright eyes, catches sight of you. She stops her game, a look of curiosity on her face. Her mother calls her, and she reluctantly returns to her play. But the momentary connection, the brief acknowledgement of your presence without judgment, is a small warmth in your otherwise cold day. This fleeting interaction is an interesting counterpoint to the more general Roman societal view, which often categorized beggars into different types. The deserving poor, e.g., the elderly, the infirm, and the undeserving, the able-bodied. Though you, personally, don't fit neatly into either box from a Roman perspective, being simply an anonymous shadow. As darkness begins to fall, the market becomes eerily quiet. The sounds of human activity fade, replaced by the rustling of rats and the distant howling of dogs. You gather your few meager findings, a small, pitiful collection of scraps that will serve as your evening meal. You find a sheltered spot against a sturdy market stall, its wooden walls offering some protection from the night wind. You huddle there, eating slowly, deliberately, savoring each bite. The city lights begin to twinkle in the distance, a grand tapestry of illumination that highlights the vast difference between your world and the world of those who live in comfort. You are a ghost in their magnificent city, an unseen shadow moving through its brightly lit streets. As exhaustion finally begins to claim you, you pull your tattered cloak around you once more, curling into a tight ball. The cold of the stone seeps into your bones, but at least your stomach is not entirely empty. For tonight, that is enough. You drift into a restless, fitful sleep, waiting for the harsh reality of another Roman dawn. The cold, unforgiving stone of the alleyway is your first sensation as you begin to stir. It's a familiar, deeply ingrained feeling, almost like an extension of your own aching bones. The darkness still clings to the narrow confines of your makeshift shelter, but a faint, Almost imperceptible lightning in the air signals the approach of another Roman dawn. You shiver, pulling the tattered remnants of your cloak tighter, its threadbare fabric offering little more than a psychological barrier against the pervasive chill. Your stomach clenches, a hollow, nauseating spasm that is the constant, nagging companion of your existence. Another day, another relentless quest for a few meager coins, a few scraps of food. You push yourself up, slowly, muscles protesting with dull aches that have become chronic. Every movement is a deliberate effort, conserving the scarce energy that fuels your struggle. The air in the alley is thick with the accumulated smells of the night, damp earth, stale urine, and the faint, sweet decay of discarded refuse. This is your reality, the unvarnished truth of life at the very bottom of Rome's magnificent, brutal social ladder. Your thoughts immediately turn to strategy. Where will you station yourself today? The prime spots, the entrances to the Forum, the grand temples, the lavish homes of the wealthy, are consistently occupied by other, more entrenched beggars, often protected by informal networks or sheer physical dominance. You learned long ago that challenging them is a fool's errand, leading only to beatings, or worse, being driven from your territory entirely. So you seek the peripheries, the less frequented thoroughfares where opportunities might be fewer, but the risks of confrontation are also lower. Today, you decide to try your luck near the Pontus Fabricius, the bridge leading to Tiber Island. It's a busy crossing, connecting two parts of the city, and often frequented by people from all walks of life, merchants, citizens on their way to the temples on the island, and even the occasional wealthy individual seeking a moment of peace. The river itself, the Tiber, carries its own smells: damp earth, silt, and sometimes the faint odor of sewage. It's a place of constant movement, offering a steady, if often indifferent, stream of potential benefactors. As you begin your slow shuffle towards the bridge, the city gradually awakens around you. The first sounds are the distant creak of cartwheels on cobblestones, then the shouts of street vendors, their voices cutting through the morning stillness. Water, fresh water, hot sausages. You pass by the grand aqueducts, their massive arches a testament to Roman engineering prowess, carrying fresh water to the public fountains and private homes of the elite. You sometimes wonder if the builders of these marvels ever considered the lives of those who would drink from its lowest spouts, or those like you who would merely watch its majestic flow. The journey to the bridge is a slow, arduous process. Your feet, wrapped in worn rags, ache with every step. The cobblestones are uneven, and you must constantly watch your footing, lest a stumble lead to injury, a potentially fatal setback in your precarious existence. You pass other early risers, slaves hurrying with market baskets, artisans opening their workshops, and the occasional solitary figure, like you, moving with a desperate purpose. Most avert their gaze, their faces carefully blank, as if your very presence is a stain on their mourning. Reaching the Pontus Fabricius, you find a spot at the foot of the bridge, tucked against a weathered stone parapet. It's a good position, allowing you to catch the eyes of those crossing, but also offering a quick retreat should the vigils or a particularly ill-tempered citizen decide to move you along. You settle into your familiar posture, head bowed, eyes fixed on the dirty stones, your small, chipped clay bowl placed carefully before you. Your ragged appearance is your silent, unyielding plea, speaking volumes about your desperation without a single word. The flow of people across the bridge is constant. You hear the rhythmic slap of sandals, the murmur of conversations, the occasional laugh. You listen, always listening, for the faint clink of a coin, the rustle of a garment as someone pauses. Most pass by without a glance, their lives rushing forward, completely oblivious to your silent vigil. You're a part of the city's backdrop, a human shadow amidst its vibrant, bustling life. One common historical observation is how prevalent beggars were in Roman society. Yet how little direct personal testimony survives from them. We know about them from the writings of the elite, who often viewed them with a mix of disdain, pity, or amusement. You, a living embodiment of this often overlooked demographic, are a testament to the fact that history is often written by the victors, or at least, by those who can afford to write. Your story, like that of so many others, remains largely unwritten, etched only on the cold, hard streets of Rome. Hours crawl by, marked by the shifting light of the sun on the water and the changing sounds of the city. Mid-morning brings a peak in pedestrian traffic, your busiest time. You watch a group of elegantly dressed women, their togas bright and clean, their hair intricately styled. Their conversation, light and airy, drifts over you. They speak of banquets, of new jewelry, of the latest gossip from the imperial court. It's a world so impossibly far removed from your own, a stark reminder of the vast chasm between your two realities. One of the women, as she passes, accidentally drops a small, embroidered purse. Your eyes widen, your heart pounds, you freeze, daring not to move, daring not to even breathe too loudly. To pick it up would be to invite disaster, accusations of theft, and a brutal punishment. Before you can even consider the impossible, a slave accompanying them quickly stoops down and retrieves it, handing it back to her mistress with an apologetic bow. The opportunity, fleeting and dangerous, vanishes as quickly as it appeared. The temptation to just grab it, to run, was immense. But you've learned the bitter lesson of restraint. Survival on the streets of Rome isn't just about finding food, it's about avoiding detection, avoiding conflict, and understanding the unwritten rules of the underbelly. One funny thought that sometimes floats through your head, in moments of extreme hunger, is how much easier life would be if coins just magically appeared in your bowl, without the need for human intervention. A ludicrous fantasy, of course, but it helps to pass the time. A shadow falls over you. You look up cautiously, your eyes still cast down. A pair of worn, calloused hands place a small, hard piece of bread into your bowl. You look up slightly, just enough to see the face of an old man, his features etched with hardship, his clothes simple. He gives you a knowing nod, a silent acknowledgement of shared struggle, then shuffles away. It's not much, perhaps a day old, but it's food, and it's a gift given without judgment. You clutch the bread, its rough texture a comfort in your calloused fingers. This small act of charity, often from those who have little to spare themselves, is what keeps you going. A flicker of humanity in an often inhumane world. One of the fascinating academic debates revolves around the concept of dignitas and pietas in Roman society, dignity and piety. How did these concepts apply to the poor, especially those who were not clients of a wealthy patron? Was offering charity an act of pietas, or was it merely a way for the wealthy to display their dignitas? For you, the beggar? These philosophical debates are meaningless. What matters is the bread in your hand, the tangible act of kindness. As midday approaches, the sun beats down with increasing intensity. The stone parapet against your back radiates heat, but it's a dry, oppressive warmth that only makes you feel more parched. Thirst begins to set in, a dry, scratchy sensation in your throat. You know you'll need to seek out a public fountain soon, but moving now means abandoning your spot, even temporarily, and risking losing it to another desperate soul. The calculation is constant. How much risk for how much reward? You hear the distant shouts of a public gathering, perhaps a political speech or a religious procession heading towards the temples on the island. The sound ebbs and flows, a low hum that underscores the vibrancy of Roman life, a life you can only observe from the margins. You are a silent witness to the grand spectacle of the city, yet forever apart from it. A group of sailors, their faces tanned and weathered, their clothes smelling of salt and fish, cross the bridge. They are boisterous, laughing loudly. One of them, seeing you, stops. He pulls a small leather pouch from his belt and drops a surprisingly heavy coin into your bowl, a denarius. Your eyes widen in disbelief. A denarius. That's more than you usually make in several days combined. It's a fortune. Enough for several days of decent food, perhaps even a night in a cheap, flea-ridden hostel, a truly rare luxury. You try to offer a word of thanks, but he just grunts, claps you on the shoulder with a surprisingly gentle hand, and moves on, rejoining his comrades. You clutch the denarius, its silver gleam a dazzling promise. It feels alien in your bowl, so much more substantial than the usual quadrans or asses. This unexpected windfall fills you with a rare surge of elation, a feeling almost forgotten. It's a temporary reprieve, a moment of extraordinary luck in a life defined by its absence. You know you must be careful with it, make it last. Perhaps hide some of it for a truly desperate day. This is a common historical truth, that for the truly poor, even a small, unexpected sum could mean the difference between life and death, or at least, between agonizing hunger and momentary comfort. As the afternoon wears on, the crowds on the bridge begin to thin, the shadows lengthen, and the air cools, bringing with it the familiar dampness from the river. You decide it's time to move, to seek a safer, more private place to count your blessings and plan for the evening. You carefully wrap the denarius in a corner of your tattered cloak, tucking it deep into a hidden pocket. You leave your spot by the bridge, joining the thinning stream of people. The city's sounds begin to soften, the harsh clamor of the day replaced by a more subdued hum. You navigate the winding alleyways, seeking out a quiet corner, a place where you can safely eat the bread and perhaps plan for the extravagance that your denarius now affords. The smell of evening meals drifts from the open doorways of tabernae, tempting and torturous. As darkness fully descends, you find a secluded nook, hidden from the main thoroughfare. You eat the hard bread slowly, savoring each bite, already planning how to spend your newfound wealth. Perhaps a hot meal tonight, a small, cheap cup of wine. The possibilities, though limited, fill you with a rare sense of hope. You pull your cloak around you, settling down for the night. The weight of the denarius, a small, reassuring presence against your skin. You drift into a slightly less troubled sleep. The image of that silver coin, a rare, comforting glow in the relentless darkness of your Roman life. The cold, hard reality of the Roman streets is your first conscious thought as you stir from a fitful, shallow sleep. The faint gray light of pre-dawn filters into your narrow alley, revealing the familiar grime and discarded refuse that mark your territory. Your body, accustomed to the discomfort, protests with a symphony of aches, a dull throb in your knees, a persistent crick in your neck, and the ever-present gnawing emptiness in your stomach. The silver denarius from yesterday, a fleeting miracle, is long gone. Carefully spent on a small, hot meal and perhaps a cheap, watered wine that offered a brief, dizzying escape. Now, the hunger is back, a familiar and unwelcome companion. You pull your ragged cloak tighter around your shoulders, its thin fabric offering scant protection against the morning chill. The stench of the city, a blend of human waste, stale food, and damp earth, fills your nostrils, a constant reminder of your place at the bottom of Rome's grand society. You push yourself up, slowly. Every movement a deliberate conservation of precious energy. Your feet, wrapped in layers of worn cloth, are perpetually sore. Each step a small act of defiance against the relentless wear of the cobblestones. Your mind, though dulled by chronic hunger and exhaustion, immediately begins its daily calculation. Where will you go today? The popular spots near the Forum and the great temples are always fiercely contested, often by younger, more aggressive beggars who might belong to loosely organized gangs. You've learned through painful experience that these territories are best avoided. Instead, you seek the less obvious pathways, the secondary thoroughfares where the flow of people is thinner, but perhaps less hardened to your plight. Today, You decide to try your luck near the Circus Maximus. It's a gamble. The circus is a place of grand spectacles and boisterous crowds. But these crowds are often focused solely on the games, their attention fixed on the chariots and gladiators. However, the sheer volume of people entering and exiting, particularly on a race day, offers a tantalizing possibility. You might catch the eye of a well-to-do citizen in a moment of celebratory good spirits, or perhaps find discarded food from their picnics. As you begin your slow, shuffling journey towards the circus, the city slowly awakens around you. The distant rumble of carts, the bleating of sheep being driven to market, and the growing chorus of human voices fill the air. You pass by the imposing, multi-storied insulae, their windows still dark, imagining the lives lived within. Lives of warmth, regular meals, and soft beds. A stark contrast to your own cold, hungry existence. The air is thick with the pervasive smells of Rome, the constant backdrop to your precarious life. Reaching the vicinity of the Circus Maximus, you are immediately struck by its immense scale. Even empty, its vast oval shape is awe-inspiring. You find a spot near one of the lesser entrances, slightly away from the main crush of people, allowing you some anonymity. You settle into your familiar posture, head bowed, eyes fixed on the dusty ground, your small chipped clay bowl placed carefully before you. Your tattered appearance is your silent, eloquent plea, a visual testament to your desperation. Hours pass in a blur of footsteps and murmurs. The crowds are building, a steady stream of people heading towards the circus, eager for the day's races. You hear snippets of excited conversation. Who do you think will win? The Reds or the Blues? Did you get a good seat? Their anticipation and joy are a stark contrast to your own grim reality. You are a silent observer, a shadow amidst the vibrant spectacle. It's a common historical detail that Roman citizens, especially those from the lower plebeian classes, were heavily reliant on public spectacles and grain-dole distributions. These were the moments where the city's vast population could momentarily forget their hardships. And for you, a beggar, these events were both a potential opportunity and a significant challenge, as the crowds could be overwhelming and often indifferent. Suddenly, a small, round object lands with a soft thud near your bowl. You look down. It's a half-eaten apple, bruised but still edible. You look up quickly, but the person who tossed it has already disappeared into the surging crowd. You snatch the apple, wiping it on your tattered cloak, and take a bite. The sweet, slightly mealy flesh is a burst of flavor. A small victory against the constant gnawing of hunger. It's a fleeting moment of grace, a reminder that not all hearts are hardened by the city's indifference. This fleeting act of kindness makes you ponder a nuanced academic debate: how much of Roman charity was truly altruistic, and how much was driven by a desire for public display or social credit. While some historians argue for genuine compassion, others suggest that public generosity was often a calculated move to gain popularity or maintain social standing. For you, the recipient, the motivation is secondary to the simple fact of the apple in your hand. As the day progresses, the noise from inside the circus intensifies. The roar of the crowd, the thundering hooves of the chariots, the shouts of the charioteers. The ground beneath you vibrates with the energy of the races. You can almost feel the excitement, a wave of collective emotion that sweeps over the city. It's a strange juxtaposition, the immense, exhilarating spectacle inside, and your quiet, desperate vigil outside. A group of rowdy young men celebrating a win at the races stumble past. One of them, seeing you, stops. "Look at this fellow," he shouts, his voice slurred with wine. "Lost all your money on the greens, did you?" He laughs, a harsh, mocking sound. Another one kicks playfully at your bowl, sending it skittering across the dusty ground. You flinch, but remain still, your face a mask of practiced stoicism. They quickly lose interest and move on, their laughter fading into the distance. Such casual cruelty is a daily reality. the small, sharp barbs of contempt that punctuate your existence. You retrieve your bowl, its contents still empty save for the apple core. Your heart is heavy, but you quickly resettle yourself. There's no time for self-pity. Survival is paramount. The sun climbs high, beating down with a fierce intensity. The dust kicked up by the thousands of feet near the circus irritates your eyes and throat. Thirst begins to set in, a dry, scratchy sensation. You know you'll need to find a public fountain soon, but leaving your spot means risking losing it to another desperate soul. The constant calculation of risk versus reward is ingrained in your very being. You notice a discarded wineskin near a group of picnickers. It's mostly empty, but perhaps a few drops remain. You wait for your chance, then quickly, furtively, scurry over, snatch it up, and bring it to your lips. A few sour, warm drops trickle into your mouth, just enough to moisten your parched throat. It's not much, but it's something. You've learned to be grateful for even the smallest, most unappetizing finds. A bizarre thought that sometimes crosses your mind is how much ancient Roman public toilets, which sometimes featured flowing water, must have seemed like luxurious oases to those who lacked basic sanitation. The afternoon wears on, the crowd slowly thinning as the races conclude. This is often a more fruitful time for begging, as people, perhaps sated and content, might be more inclined to offer alms. You try to summon what little energy you have left, to maintain your posture, to project an image of quiet suffering rather than aggressive demand. The air begins to cool as the sun starts its descent, casting long shadows across the vast expanse of the circus. A well-dressed man, walking with a young boy, pauses near you. The boy points at you, his face a mixture of curiosity and concern. The man sighs, then reaches into his purse and drops a small copper coin, a quadrans, into your bowl. He doesn't say anything, just nods, almost imperceptibly, and then walks away, gently pulling his son along. It's a small sum, but it's a direct act of charity, given without judgment. You clutch the coin, its rough surface surprisingly warm in your cold fingers. It means you will have a small piece of bread tonight. This small act of individual kindness is a stark counterpoint to the broader, often indifferent, Roman societal structure. While there were no formal state-run welfare systems as we understand them today for the majority of the population, private charity, often driven by personal piety or a desire for social recognition, played a significant role for some. However, historians still debate how consistently or effectively this charity reached the truly marginalized like yourself. As darkness begins to fall, the area around the circus grows quiet, save for the distant sounds of the city. You collect your meager earnings for the day, a few quadrans, perhaps, and as if you were lucky. It's rarely enough to truly satisfy your hunger, but it's enough to survive another night. You find a sheltered spot against one of the outer walls of the circus, its massive stones radiating the day's absorbed heat. You huddle there, eating your small piece of bread slowly, meticulously, extracting every last calorie. The moon rises, casting a pale glow over the vast, silent arena. You are a small, insignificant figure in its shadow, a forgotten part of Rome's grand narrative. As exhaustion finally begins to claim you, you pull your cloak around you, curling into a tight ball. The cold of the stone seeps into your bones, but at least your stomach is not entirely empty. For tonight, that is enough. You drift into a restless, fitful sleep, waiting for the harsh reality of another Roman dawn, and the endless cycle of hunger, hope, and survival. The gnawing ache in your stomach is your constant companion, a dull, insistent rhythm that underlies every beat of your heart. As the pre-dawn chill begins to lift from the narrow alleyway, painting the high walls of the insulae with a faint, dirty gray, you stir from your restless sleep, your body, a patchwork of aches and stiffness, protests the cold. hard ground that has been your bed for countless nights. You pull the tattered remnants of your cloak tighter, its thin fabric offering scant comfort against the pervasive dampness. The air hangs heavy with the familiar smells of Rome's neglected corners, stale refuse, damp earth, and the faint, sour tang of human waste. This is your reality. The unvarnished truth of a life lived on the very fringes of a magnificent yet brutal empire. You push yourself up slowly, every movement a deliberate conservation of the scarce energy that fuels your daily struggle. Your feet, perpetually sore and calloused from endless walking on rough cobblestones, ache with each step. The few meager coins you might have earned yesterday, perhaps enough for a small, hard piece of bread, were consumed hours ago. Now, the hunger is back, a familiar and unwelcome companion, driving you forward into the uncertainty of another Roman day. Your mind, though dulled by chronic hunger and exhaustion, immediately begins its daily calculus. Where will you position yourself today? The prime spots near the Forum and the grand temples are always fiercely contested, often by younger, more aggressive beggars who might belong to loosely organized gangs or be protected by petty thugs. You learned long ago that challenging them is a fool's errand, leading only to beatings, or worse, being driven from your meager territory entirely. So you seek the peripheries, the less obvious pathways, the secondary thoroughfares where the flow of people is thinner, but perhaps less hardened to your plight. Today, you decide to try your luck near the Porta Capena, one of the gates of the Servian Wall, where the Appian Way begins. It's a place where travelers enter and exit the city, a mix of merchants, soldiers, and citizens. There's a chance you might encounter someone newly arrived, perhaps more susceptible to pity before the city's indifference sets in, or perhaps a departing traveler, easing their conscience before a long journey. The gate itself is imposing, a symbol of Rome's power, yet it also acts as a gateway to the world beyond its walls, a world you can only imagine. As you begin your slow, shuffling journey towards the gate, the city slowly awakens around you. The distant rumble of carts, the bleating of sheep being driven to market, and the growing chorus of human voices fill the air. You pass by the imposing, multi-storied insulae, their windows still dark, imagining the lives lived within, lives of warmth, regular meals, and soft beds, a stark contrast to your own cold, hungry existence. The air is thick with the pervasive smells of Rome, the constant backdrop to your precarious life. Reaching the vicinity of the Porta Capena, you are struck by the sheer scale of the stone gate, scarred by centuries of weather and countless passing feet. You find a spot just outside the main thoroughfare, tucked against a weathered stone block that offers a slight windbreak. You settle into your familiar posture, head bowed, eyes fixed on the dusty ground, your small, chipped clay bowl placed carefully before you. Your tattered appearance is your silent, eloquent plea, a visual testament to your desperation. Hours pass in a blur of footsteps and murmurs. People flow past like a relentless river, their faces a blur of indifference. You hear the rhythmic clatter of horse hooves, the creak of wagon wheels, and the excited chatter of those entering the city, eager for its wonders. You watch, an invisible observer, as merchants haggle loudly over prices, as soldiers march with disciplined steps, and as families, newly arrived, gaze with awe at the grandeur of Rome. A commonly held belief in Roman society was that begging for able-bodied individuals was a sign of moral failing, often leading to a lack of sympathy from the elite. However, there was also a tradition of private caritas charity, often linked to religious piety or social obligation. This duality meant your existence was a constant negotiation between these two conflicting perspectives. Suddenly, a small, hard piece of dried fruit, perhaps an apricot, rolls to a stop near your bowl. You look up quickly, but the person who dropped it has already disappeared into the stream of travelers. You snatch the fruit, wiping it on your tattered cloak, and take a bite. The tough, chewy flesh offers a burst of concentrated sweetness, a rare delight against the constant gnawing of hunger. It's a fleeting moment of grace, a reminder that not all hearts are hardened by the city's indifference. This small, unexpected gift brings to mind a historical debate: to what extent did Roman patrons and their clients engage in genuine acts of charity versus performative generosity for social standing? While the wealthy certainly used public benefactions to enhance their reputations, smaller, individual acts like this were likely more common and less documented. For you, the hungry recipient, the philosophical nuances are irrelevant. The food is real. As the day progresses, the heat begins to build, radiating from the ancient stones of the gate. The dust kicked up by the thousands of passing feet irritates your eyes and throat. Thirst begins to set in, a dry, scratchy sensation that adds to your discomfort. You know you'll need to find a public fountain soon, but moving now means abandoning your spot, even temporarily, and risking losing it to another desperate soul. The constant calculation of risk versus reward is ingrained in your very being. You observe a wealthy traveler, clearly a man of means, arguing loudly with a porter over the price of carrying his baggage. The exchange is heated, filled with gestures and raised voices. The traveler, exasperated, throws a small handful of coins onto the ground, not caring where they land, and storms off. Your heart pounds. You wait, barely breathing, until the porter has collected his due and moved away. Then, with practiced speed, you dart out, scrambling on your hands and knees. You find 2 quadrans and a small, corroded as, not a fortune, but a significant boost to your daily earnings. You quickly tuck them away, a tiny victory against the indifference of the city. One of the more unique, almost comedic, aspects of Roman life, from your perspective, is the sheer number of lost items. People are constantly dropping things in the chaotic streets. While you can't always risk picking them up, the occasional lucky find like this is a lifeline. The afternoon wears on, the crowds slowly thinning as the sun begins its descent. This is often a more fruitful time for begging, as people, perhaps sated and content, might be more inclined to offer alms. You try to summon what little energy you have left, to maintain your posture, to project an image of quiet suffering rather than aggressive demand. The air begins to cool as the sun starts its descent, casting long shadows across the ancient gate. A soldier, his armor gleaming, pauses near you. He looks at you for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he drops a small, worn leather pouch into your bowl. You look up, surprised. He simply nods. A brief, almost imperceptible gesture, and continues on his way. You open the pouch. Inside, you find not coins, but a handful of dried beans and a small piece of cured meat, a soldier's rations. Your heart swells with a rare surge of gratitude. This is a true gift, proper food, a source of sustained energy. It's far more valuable than any coin. This unexpected generosity, particularly from a soldier who might himself live a hard life, challenges some academic notions of Roman social hierarchy and who was expected to give charity. While the military was a distinct social group, acts of individual compassion could clearly transcend class boundaries. It leaves you with the lingering thought of whether this particular soldier had known hunger himself. As darkness begins to fall, the area around the Porta Capena grows quieter, save for the distant sounds of the city and the occasional late traveler. You collect your meager earnings for the day, and more importantly, your precious soldier's rations. You find a sheltered spot against the massive stones of the Servian wall, its ancient bulk offering some protection from the night wind. You huddle there, eating the dried beans and cured meat slowly, meticulously, savoring each bite. The flavors are strong, robust, a welcome change from the blandness of stale bread. The stars begin to appear in the vast Roman sky, a shimmering tapestry of light that highlights the immense scale of the universe. And your own tiny, almost insignificant place within it. You are a small, forgotten figure in the shadow of this grand gate, a silent witness to the ebb and flow of life in the eternal city. As exhaustion finally begins to claim you, you pull your cloak around you, curling into a tight ball. The cold of the stone seeps into your bones, but at least your stomach is full tonight, a rare and precious luxury. For tonight. That is enough. You drift into a slightly less troubled sleep, the taste of the soldier's rations a comforting memory, waiting for the harsh reality of another Roman dawn, and the endless cycle of hunger, hope, and survival. The first touch of dawn on your face is a familiar cold caress, pulling you from the shallow depths of a restless sleep. You open your eyes to the familiar gray wash of a Roman alleyway, the high walls of the insulae towering above, blocking out the full light of the rising sun. Your body, a symphony of aches and stiffness, protests the cold, hard ground that has been your bed. Every joint feels like rusty hinges, refusing to move without complaint. You pull your tattered cloak tighter, its thin fabric offering little more than a whisper of warmth against the pervasive chill. The air is thick with the pervasive smells of the city, damp earth, stale refuse, and the faint, sour tang of human waste. This is your reality, the unvarnished truth of a life lived on the very fringes of a magnificent yet brutal empire. You push yourself up slowly, every movement a deliberate conservation of the scarce energy that fuels your daily struggle. Your feet, perpetually sore and calloused from endless walking on rough cobblestones, ache with each step. The few meager coins you might have earned yesterday, perhaps enough for a small, hard piece of bread, were consumed hours ago. Now, the hunger is back. A familiar and unwelcome companion, driving you forward into the uncertainty of another Roman day. Your mind, though dulled by chronic hunger and exhaustion, immediately begins its daily calculus. Where will you position yourself today? The prime spots near the Forum and the grand temples are always fiercely contested, often by younger, more aggressive beggars who might belong to loosely organized gangs or be protected by petty thugs. You learned long ago that challenging them is a fool's errand, leading only to beatings, or worse, being driven from your meager territory entirely. So you seek the peripheries, the less obvious pathways, the secondary thoroughfares where the flow of people is thinner, but perhaps less hardened to your plight. Today, you decide to try your luck near the public baths, specifically the baths of Caracalla. It's a risky venture. While the baths attract a wealthy clientele, they are also heavily patrolled by bath attendants and vigils who are keen to keep the area clear of undesirables. However, the sheer volume of people, particularly later in the day, offers tantalizing possibilities of discarded clothes, leftover food from bathers' meals, or even, on a rare occasion, the pity of someone feeling generous after a relaxing soak. The very idea of the opulent baths, with their warm water and luxuries, is almost incomprehensible to you. As you begin your slow, shuffling journey towards the baths, the city slowly awakens around you. The distant rumble of carts, the bleating of sheep being driven to market, and the growing chorus of human voices fill the air. You pass by the imposing, multi-storied insulae, their windows still dark, imagining the lives lived within, lives of warmth, regular meals, and soft beds. A stark contrast to your own cold, hungry existence. The air is thick with the pervasive smells of Rome, the constant backdrop to your precarious life. Reaching the vicinity of the baths of Caracalla, even from a distance, you are struck by their colossal scale. The sheer volume of marble, the towering arches, the sprawling complex. It speaks of immense wealth and power. You find a spot along a less frequented perimeter wall, tucked against a crumbling section of brick that offers a sliver of shade. You settle into your familiar posture, head bowed, eyes fixed on the dusty ground. your small chipped clay bowl placed carefully before you. Your tattered appearance is your silent, eloquent plea, a visual testament to your desperation. Hours pass in a blur of footsteps and murmurs. People flow past like a relentless river, their faces a blur of indifference. You hear the rhythmic slap of sandals, the murmur of conversations, the occasional laugh. You listen, always listening, for the faint clink of a coin, the rustle of a garment as someone pauses. Most pass by without a glance, their lives rushing forward, completely oblivious to your silent vigil. You're a part of the city's backdrop, a human shadow amidst its vibrant, bustling life. It's a curious historical fact that while the Roman state provided public baths, accessible even to the poor for a small fee, the truly destitute often lacked even this small coin, or the proper attire for such an outing. So, ironically, you exist outside the very public amenities that were supposed to be available to all citizens, highlighting the layered poverty that historians still try to fully comprehend. Suddenly, a small, worn sandal, clearly discarded, rolls to a stop near your feet. You look up quickly, but the person who dropped it has already disappeared into the stream of bathers. You snatch the sandal. It's too large for you, but the leather is still somewhat intact. Perhaps you can trade it for a piece of bread, or use it to patch your own disintegrating footwear. It's a small, unexpected windfall, a reminder that even in abandonment, there can be value. This small find makes you consider a peculiar detail of Roman urban life: the sheer amount of discarded items. From broken pottery to worn-out clothes, the streets and dumping grounds were rife with what the wealthy considered trash, but which could be a treasure trove for those like you, illustrating the stark differences in resourcefulness required at different social strata. As the day progresses, the heat begins to build. Radiating from the ancient stones of the bath complex, the air grows heavy with the scent of human bodies, steam, and the faint, sweet smell of perfumes and oils used by bathers. Thirst begins to set in, a dry, scratchy sensation that adds to your discomfort. You know you'll need to find a public fountain soon, but moving now means abandoning your spot, even temporarily, and risking losing it to another desperate soul. The constant calculation of risk versus reward is ingrained in your very being. You observe a wealthy man, clearly a patron, surrounded by his retinue of clients, exiting the baths. He is jovial, his face flushed from the heat and his bath. He laughs loudly at a joke made by one of his clients, and in a grand gesture, tosses a handful of small coins onto the ground, not directly at you, but in your general direction, for anyone to scramble for. Your heart pounds. You wait, barely breathing, for his retinue to pass. Then, with practiced speed, you dart out, scrambling on your hands and knees amidst the dust and discarded bits. You find 2 asses and a quadrans, not a fortune, but a significant boost to your daily earnings. You quickly tuck them away, a tiny victory against the indifference of the city. One of the fascinating academic debates among historians is the true nature of the Roman clientela system. While often portrayed as a reciprocal relationship, for those at the very bottom, like you, it was often merely a desperate scramble for the crumbs from a patron's table. Or, in this case, the coins tossed carelessly aside. Your experience highlights the performative aspect of such generosity, rather than a genuine social safety net. The afternoon wears on, the crowds slowly thinning as the heat becomes oppressive. This is often a less fruitful time for begging, as people seek refuge indoors. You try to summon what little energy you have left, to maintain your posture, to project an image of quiet suffering rather than aggressive demand. The air begins to cool as the sun starts its descent, casting long shadows across the grand bath complex. A young woman, perhaps a slave or a freed woman working at the baths, pauses near you. She looks at you with a sympathetic gaze, her eyes holding a flicker of understanding. Without a word, she places a small, carefully wrapped bundle into your bowl. You look up, Surprised, she simply offers a small, sad smile, a brief, almost imperceptible gesture, and continues on her way. You unwrap the bundle. Inside, you find a small piece of cooked fish and a few olives, a true luxury. Your heart swells with a rare surge of gratitude. This is a true gift, proper food, a source of sustained energy, a taste of a life you can only dream of. This unexpected act of compassion, especially from someone who likely has little to spare themselves, challenges simplistic notions of social hierarchy and who is expected to give charity. It leaves you with the lingering thought that kindness can come from the most unexpected places, a testament to individual human empathy rather than systemic structures. As darkness begins to fall, the area around the baths of Caracalla grows quieter, save for the distant sounds of the city and the occasional late bather. You collect your meager earnings for the day, and more importantly, your precious meal. You find a sheltered spot against the massive, still warm stones of the bath complex, its ancient bulk offering some protection from the night wind. You huddle there, eating the fish and olives slowly, meticulously, savoring each bite. The flavors are rich, savory, a welcome change from the blandness of stale bread. The stars begin to appear in the vast Roman sky, a shimmering tapestry of light that highlights the immense scale of the universe, and your own tiny, almost insignificant place within it. You are a small, forgotten figure in the shadow of this grand structure, a silent witness to the ebb and flow of life in the eternal city. As exhaustion finally begins to claim you, you pull your cloak around you, curling into a tight ball. The cold of the stone seeps into your bones, but at least your stomach is full tonight, a rare and precious luxury. For tonight, that is enough. You drift into a slightly less troubled sleep, the taste of the fish and olives a comforting memory, waiting for the harsh reality of another Roman dawn, and the endless cycle of hunger, hope, and survival. The familiar chill of pre-dawn Rome is your first sensation, seeping into your bones from the unforgiving stone beneath you. You stir from a shallow, broken sleep, the kind that offers little true rest, only a momentary escape from the relentless grind. Your body aches, a chorus of protests from chronically stiff joints and muscles perpetually strained. The tattered cloak, your only real possession, provides a meager shield against the pervasive damp and cold of the alleyway. The air is heavy with the mingled scents of the city's forgotten corners, stale refuse, damp earth, and the faint, sour tang of human waste that is as familiar as your own breath. This is your reality, the unvarnished truth of a life lived on the ragged edge of survival in Rome's grand, yet brutal, empire. You push yourself up, slowly, every movement a deliberate act of conservation, preserving the scarce energy that fuels your daily quest for sustenance. Your feet, perpetually sore and calloused from endless walking on rough cobblestones, ache with each step, wrapped in worn rags that offer little protection. The few meager coins you might have earned yesterday, perhaps enough for a small, hard piece of bread, were consumed hours ago. Now, the hunger is back, a familiar and unwelcome companion, driving you forward into the uncertainty of another Roman day. Your mind, though dulled by chronic hunger and exhaustion, immediately begins its daily calculation. Where will you position yourself today? The prime spots near the Forum and the Grand Temples are always fiercely contested, often by younger, more aggressive beggars who might belong to loosely organized gangs or be protected by petty thugs. You learned long ago that challenging them is a fool's errand, leading only to beatings, or worse, being driven from your meager territory entirely. So you seek the peripheries, the less obvious pathways, the secondary thoroughfares where the flow of people is thinner, but perhaps less hardened to your plight. Today, you decide to try your luck near the Porta Ostiensis, one of the major gates leading to Ostia, Rome's port city. It's a busy thoroughfare, constantly seeing merchants, sailors, and travelers. The sheer volume of traffic offers tantalizing possibilities. Travelers might be more generous, either out of a sense of religious piety before a journey, or simply to alleviate their conscience. You might catch the eye of a returning merchant, flush with profits, or a soldier returning from a distant campaign, as you begin your slow, shuffling journey towards the gate. The city slowly awakens around you. The distant rumble of carts, the bleating of sheep being driven to market, and the growing chorus of human voices fill the air. You pass by the imposing, multi-storied insulae, their windows still dark, imagining the lives lived within, lives of warmth, regular meals, and soft beds, a stark contrast to your own cold, hungry existence. The air is thick with the pervasive smells of Rome, the constant backdrop to your precarious life. Reaching the vicinity of the Porta Ostiensis, you are struck by its sheer scale. It's a monumental gateway, its ancient stones worn smooth by centuries of passing feet and cartwheels. You find a spot just outside the main archway, slightly out of the direct flow of traffic but still visible. You settle into your familiar posture, head bowed, eyes fixed on the dusty ground. Your small, chipped clay bowl placed carefully before you. Your tattered appearance is your silent, eloquent plea, a visual testament to your desperation. Hours pass in a blur of footsteps and murmurs. People flow past like a relentless river, their faces a blur of indifference. You hear the rhythmic slap of sandals, the heavy thud of soldiers' boots, the creak of loaded wagons, and the excited chatter of those entering or exiting the city. You listen, always listening, for the faint clink of a coin, the rustle of a garment as someone pauses. Most pass by without a glance, their lives rushing forward, completely oblivious to your silent vigil. You're a part of the city's backdrop, a human shadow amidst its vibrant, bustling life. It's a commonly accepted historical truth that Rome, despite its vast wealth, had a significant problem with urban poverty, and the presence of beggars was a constant, if often ignored, feature of its streets. This highlights the stark social inequalities that characterized the empire, where unimaginable luxury coexisted with abject destitution. Your everyday struggle is a living testament to this historical reality. Suddenly, a small, worn leather pouch, clearly dropped by accident, lands with a soft thud near your bowl. Your heart leaps. You glance around furtively. No one seems to have noticed. With trembling hands, you reach out and snatch it, tucking it quickly beneath your cloak. You dare not open it now. The risk of being seen, of being accused of theft, is too great. You must wait for a safer moment. The anticipation, the sheer possibility of what might be inside, sends a jolt of nervous energy through your weary body. It's a moment of desperate hope, a tiny flicker of light in your bleak existence. This unexpected stroke of luck brings to mind a historical point that historians sometimes debate: to what extent did Roman citizens lose items intentionally for the poor to find, as a form of indirect charity, or was it simply the chaotic nature of urban life? For you, the find is a blessing, regardless of its origin. A slightly absurd thought flits through your mind. Imagine if someone, years from now, were trying to map the precise location of every lost coin in Rome. What a pointless, yet perhaps telling, exercise that would be. As the day progresses, the heat begins to build, radiating from the ancient stones of the gate. The dust kicked up by the thousands of passing feet irritates your eyes and throat. Thirst begins to set in, a dry, scratchy sensation that adds to your discomfort. You know you'll need to find a public fountain soon, but moving now means abandoning your spot, even temporarily, and risking losing it to another desperate soul. The constant calculation of risk versus reward is ingrained in your very being. You observe a group of soldiers, freshly returned from a campaign, their armor dusty but their spirits high. They are boisterous, laughing loudly, eager to enter the city and enjoy its pleasures. One of them, as he passes, makes eye contact with you. There's a flicker of something in his eyes. Recognition. Pity. He reaches into his belt pouch and, without breaking stride, drops a small, heavy coin into your bowl. A sestertius. Your heart leaps again. It's a significant sum, enough for a decent meal, perhaps even a cheap bed for the night. You quickly tuck it away, another precious addition to your meager hoard. The afternoon wears on, the crowd slowly thinning as the sun begins its descent. This is often a more fruitful time for begging, as people, perhaps sated and content, might be more inclined to offer alms. You try to summon what little energy you have left, to maintain your posture, to project an image of quiet suffering rather than aggressive demand. The air begins to cool as the sun starts its descent, casting long shadows across the ancient gate. You notice a small group of women, perhaps a family, walking past. One of them, an older woman with kind eyes, pauses. She holds out a small, roughly carved wooden figurine, perhaps a personal amulet. "May the gods watch over you," she murmurs, her voice soft, and places it gently in your bowl. It's not food, not money, but it's a gesture of genuine compassion, a recognition of your humanity. You clutch the small carving, its smooth surface warm from her touch. It's a rare and precious gift, a reminder that not all hearts are hardened by the city's indifference. This symbolic act of charity, a non-monetary gift intended to convey goodwill or prayer, is an interesting facet of Roman religious and social practice. Historians might debate the efficacy of such offerings. But for you, the recipient, it's a tangible sign of empathy, perhaps even a small token of hope, a counterpoint to the more transactional acts of giving. As darkness begins to fall, the area around the Porta Ostiensis grows quieter, save for the distant sounds of the city and the occasional late traveler. You collect your meager earnings for the day, and more importantly, the mysterious pouch and the sestertius. You find a sheltered spot against the massive, still warm stones of the gate, its ancient bulk offering some protection from the night wind. You huddle there, the anticipation of opening the pouch a vibrant warmth in your chest. With trembling fingers, you untie the leather thong. Inside, you find, not gold, not silver, but a handful of small, smooth pebbles, polished and colorful, and nestled amongst them, two more asses and a tiny, almost imperceptible piece of amber. It's a child's collection, perhaps. A wave of mixed emotions washes over you. Disappointment, yes, but also a strange, unexpected tenderness. The pebbles are worthless, but the gesture, the child's small treasure, is poignant. You take the two asses, enough for a small meal, and then, on an impulse, you put the colorful pebbles and the amber back into the pouch and carefully retie it. You'll keep it. It's a connection to an innocent world, a sliver of uncorrupted beauty in your grim reality. The stars begin to appear in the vast Roman sky, a shimmering tapestry of light that highlights the immense scale of the universe, and your own tiny, almost insignificant place within it. You are a small, forgotten figure in the shadow of this grand gate, a silent witness to the ebb and flow of life in the eternal city. As exhaustion finally begins to claim you, you pull your cloak around you, curling into a tight ball, the small pouch with its pebbles nestled close. The cold of the stone seeps into your bones. But tonight, there's a strange, unexpected warmth in your heart. For tonight, that is enough. You drift into a slightly less troubled sleep, the image of those colorful pebbles a comforting memory, waiting for the harsh reality of another Roman dawn, and the endless cycle of hunger, hope, and survival. The biting chill of pre-dawn is your first conscious awareness, a cruel awakening from the shallow depths of a sleep that offers little true solace. You lie on the cold, damp stone of the alleyway, every muscle protesting, every joint aching with the chronic pain of exposure and malnourishment. Your tattered cloak, your only comfort, provides scant protection against the pervasive dampness that clings to the air. The familiar odors of Rome's underbelly, stale refuse, the metallic tang of damp earth, and the ever-present sourness of human waste fill your nostrils, a constant, grim reminder of your existence. This is your reality, the unvarnished truth of a life lived on the ragged edge of survival in Rome's grand yet often indifferent empire. You push yourself up, slowly, carefully, each movement a deliberate effort to conserve the precious, meager energy that fuels your daily quest for a few scraps of food. A few stray coins. Your feet, perpetually sore and calloused, wrapped in layers of worn rags, ache with every step on the rough, uneven cobblestones. The small coins you might have earned yesterday, perhaps enough for a single piece of hard bread, were consumed hours ago. Now, the hunger is back, a deep, persistent ache that vibrates through your entire being, driving you forward into the uncertainty of another Roman day. Your mind, though dulled by chronic hunger and exhaustion, immediately begins its daily calculation. Where will you position yourself today? The prime spots near the Forum and the Grand Temples are always fiercely contested, often by younger, more aggressive beggars who might belong to loosely organized gangs or be protected by petty thugs. You learned long ago that challenging them is a fool's errand, leading only to beatings, or worse, being driven from your meager territory entirely. So you seek the peripheries, the less obvious pathways, the secondary thoroughfares where the flow of people is thinner, but perhaps less hardened to your plight. Today, you decide to try your luck near the Basilica of Maxentius and Constantine. It's a monumental, still unfinished structure, massive in scale, and attracts a steady flow of architects, builders, and curious citizens observing its construction. There's a chance that workers might drop coins, or that the wealthy patrons overseeing the project might be more inclined to charity, perhaps feeling a surge of civic pride. The sheer grandeur of the building, even in its incomplete state, is overwhelming, a stark contrast to your own diminished existence. As you begin your slow, shuffling journey towards the basilica, the city slowly awakens around you. The distant rumble of carts, the rhythmic clang of hammers from distant smithies, and the growing chorus of human voices fill the air. You pass by the imposing, multi-storied insulae, their windows still dark, imagining the lives lived within, lives of warmth, regular meals, and soft beds, a stark contrast to your own cold, hungry existence. The air is thick with the pervasive smells of Rome, the constant backdrop to your precarious life. Reaching the vicinity of the Basilica of Maxentius and Constantine, you are dwarfed by its colossal arches and massive brickwork. It's an active construction site, filled with the sounds of chiseling stone, shouting overseers, and the grunts of laborers. You find a spot along a less frequented perimeter, tucked against a pile of discarded rubble that offers a sliver of shelter from the bustling activity. You settle into your familiar posture, head bowed, eyes fixed on the dusty ground, your small, chipped clay bowl placed carefully before you. Your tattered appearance is your silent, eloquent plea, a visual testament to your desperation. Hours pass in a blur of footsteps and murmurs. People flow past like a relentless river, their faces a blur of indifference. You hear the rhythmic slap of sandals, the heavy thud of workers' boots, the shouts of men coordinating the movement of massive stone blocks. You listen, always listening, for the faint clink of a coin, the rustle of a garment as someone pauses. Most pass by without a glance, their lives rushing forward, completely oblivious to your silent vigil. You're a part of the city's backdrop, a human shadow amidst its vibrant, bustling life. A common historical fact is that large-scale public works projects like the Basilica provided employment for many Roman citizens. but often not for the truly marginalized or those without connections. The existence of such monumental construction, while a testament to Roman power and engineering, also highlights the vast socio-economic divides, where some built empires while others starved just outside the construction site. Suddenly, a small, oddly shaped piece of discarded marble, perhaps a broken fragment from a decorative carving, rolls to a stop near your bowl. It's smooth and cool to the touch, reflecting the light. It's useless to you, of course. But for a fleeting moment, you admire its beauty. A small piece of artistry amidst the dirt and squalor. You push it aside, making room for more practical offerings. It's a strange detail that Romans, despite their practical nature, often had a deep appreciation for aesthetics, even for mundane objects. This seemingly insignificant discarded object brings to mind a question scholars sometimes grapple with: what was the aesthetic experience of the urban poor in Rome? Did they notice the beauty of the architecture, the art, the craftsmanship, or were their lives too consumed by basic survival to appreciate such things? For you, the answer is complex. A brief, almost involuntary appreciation, quickly overshadowed by hunger. As the day progresses, the heat begins to build, radiating from the ancient stones of the basilica. The air grows heavy with the dust of construction and the pervasive smell of sweat and effort. Thirst begins to set in, a dry, scratchy sensation that adds to your discomfort. You know you'll need to find a public fountain soon, but moving now means abandoning your spot, even temporarily, and risking losing it to another desperate soul. The constant calculation of risk versus reward is ingrained in your very being. You observe a group of overseers, men in finer tunics, inspecting the construction work. They are loud, authoritative, their voices carrying over the din of the site. One of them, a portly man with a booming laugh, spots you. He scowls. "Get out of here, old man. You'll scare off the good luck." He gestures dismissively. You quickly lower your head, making yourself as small and inconspicuous as possible. You know better than to argue. A quick flick of his wrist could summon a guard, leading to a beating or worse. You remain still, a statue of misery, hoping your stillness will render you invisible, or perhaps evoke a flicker of pity. The afternoon wears on, the activity at the construction site slowly winding down as the sun begins its descent. This is often a less fruitful time for begging, as people are focused on returning home. You try to summon what little energy you have left, to maintain your posture, to project an image of quiet suffering rather than aggressive demand. The air begins to cool as the sun starts its descent, casting long shadows across the massive, unfinished structure. A young laborer, his face streaked with dirt and sweat, pauses near you. He looks at you for a long moment, his eyes holding a flicker of understanding. He pulls a small, half-eaten loaf of bread from his satchel, breaks off a generous portion, and places it gently in your bowl. He doesn't say anything, just offers a weary but kind smile, a brief, almost imperceptible gesture, and continues on his way. You clutch the bread, its rough texture a blessing. It's warm, still fresh, and the taste is heavenly. A true luxury. Your heart swells with a rare surge of gratitude. This is a true gift. Proper food. A source of sustained energy, given by someone who likely works hard for every morsel. This act of compassion, coming from another laborer who himself lives a hard life, challenges some academic notions of Roman social hierarchy and who was expected to give charity. It highlights the solidarity that could exist among the working classes, even amidst immense social stratification. It makes you wonder what struggles he faces, and if he too dreams of a life beyond constant toil. As darkness begins to fall, the area around the basilica grows quiet, save for the distant sounds of the city and the echoes of the day's construction work. You collect your meager earnings for the day, and more importantly, your precious piece of bread. You find a sheltered spot against the massive, still warm stones of the basilica, its ancient bulk offering some protection from the night wind. You huddle there, eating the bread slowly, meticulously, savoring each bite. The flavors are simple, pure, a welcome change from the blandness of stale scraps. The stars begin to appear in the vast Roman sky, a shimmering tapestry of light that highlights the immense scale of the universe, and your own tiny, almost insignificant place within it. You are a small, forgotten figure in the shadow of this grand structure, a silent witness to the ebb and flow of life in the eternal city. As exhaustion finally begins to claim you, you pull your cloak around you, curling into a tight ball. The cold of the stone seeps into your bones. But at least your stomach is full tonight, a rare and precious luxury. For tonight, that is enough. You drift into a slightly less troubled sleep, the taste of the fresh bread a comforting memory, waiting for the harsh reality of another Roman dawn, and the endless cycle of hunger, hope, and survival. The cold, unforgiving stone is your first companion as you slowly, reluctantly, return to consciousness. The pre-dawn darkness still cloaks the narrow alley, clinging to the grimy walls that are your world, your body. A patchwork of aches and stiffness protests the chill, the damp, and the endless cycle of discomfort. You pull your tattered cloak tighter, a futile gesture against the pervasive cold that seems to seep into your very bones. The air carries the familiar symphony of Rome's neglected corners' stale refuse, damp earth, and the faint sour tang of human waste. This is your reality, the constant, unvarnished truth of a life lived on the fringes of an empire that barely acknowledges your existence. You push yourself up, slowly, carefully, every movement a deliberate conservation of the scarce energy that fuels your daily quest for a few scraps of food, a few stray coins. Your feet, perpetually sore and calloused, wrapped in layers of worn rags, ache with every step on the rough, uneven cobblestones. The small coins you might have earned yesterday, perhaps enough for a single piece of hard bread, were consumed hours ago. Now, the hunger is back. A deep, persistent ache that vibrates through your entire being, driving you forward into the uncertainty of another Roman day. Your mind, though dulled by chronic hunger and exhaustion, immediately begins its daily calculation. Where will you position yourself today? The prime spots near the Forum and the grand temples are always fiercely contested, often by younger, more aggressive beggars who might belong to loosely organized gangs or be protected by petty thugs. You learned long ago that challenging them is a fool's errand, leading only to beatings, or worse, being driven from your meager territory entirely. So you seek the peripheries, the less obvious pathways, the secondary thoroughfares where the flow of people is thinner, but perhaps less hardened to your plight. Today, you decide to try your luck near the Pantheon. It's a remarkable structure, unique in its design, and it draws both citizens and visitors who come to marvel at its dome. While not as consistently busy as the Forum, the Pantheon's sheer architectural wonder might inspire a moment of awe and, perhaps, generosity. The scale of it, even from a distance, is humbling, a testament to human ingenuity. As you begin your slow, shuffling journey towards the Pantheon, the city slowly awakens around you. The distant rumble of carts, the rhythmic chanting of early morning priests heading to their temples, and the growing chorus of human voices fill the air. You pass by the imposing, multi-storied insulae, their windows still dark, imagining the lives lived within, lives of warmth, regular meals, and soft beds, a stark contrast to your own cold, hungry existence. The air is thick with the pervasive smells of Rome, the constant backdrop to your precarious life. Reaching the vicinity of the Pantheon, you are struck by its immense, circular form, its great portico a stark, majestic presence. You find a spot along a less frequented side, tucked against a smaller building that offers a sliver of shade later in the day. You settle into your familiar posture, head bowed, eyes fixed on the dusty ground. Your small, chipped clay bowl placed carefully before you. Your tattered appearance is your silent, eloquent plea, a visual testament to your desperation. Hours pass in a blur of footsteps and murmurs. People flow past like a relentless river, their faces a blur of indifference. You hear the rhythmic slap of sandals, the hushed whispers of awe as visitors gaze up at the Pantheon's oculus, the occasional chime of a bell from a nearby temple. You listen, always listening, for the faint clink of a coin, the rustle of a garment as someone pauses. Most pass by without a glance, their lives rushing forward, completely oblivious to your silent vigil. You're a part of the city's backdrop, a human shadow amidst its vibrant, bustling life. A common historical understanding is that Roman society, despite its advancements, lacked a comprehensive public safety net for the chronically poor. While grain doles existed for registered citizens, and private charity could occur, systematic support for those in your position was virtually non-existent. Your life is a daily testament to this void, a grim echo of how many, despite living in the heart of a powerful empire, remained utterly vulnerable. Suddenly, a small, vibrant piece of fruit, perhaps a plum, rolls to a stop near your bowl. It's slightly bruised, but otherwise perfect. You look up quickly, but the person who dropped it has already disappeared into the flow of people. You snatch the plum, wiping it on your tattered cloak, and take a bite. The sweet, juicy flesh is a burst of unexpected flavor, a small triumph against the constant gnawing of hunger. It's a fleeting moment of grace, a reminder that not all hearts are hardened by the city's indifference. This small, unexpected gift makes you consider a slightly humorous yet telling detail of Roman life, the sheer amount of street food and casual eating that must have resulted in numerous discarded items. For you, these discards are not waste, but potential sustenance, a testament to a resourcefulness born of dire need. It's a funny thought that your daily foraging could be considered a form of urban recycling in the ancient world. As the day progresses, the heat begins to build, radiating from the ancient stones of the Pantheon. The air grows heavy with the scent of human bodies and the faint aroma of incense from within the temple. Thirst begins to set in, a dry, scratchy sensation that adds to your discomfort. You know you'll need to find a public fountain soon, but moving now means abandoning your spot, even temporarily, and risking losing it to another desperate soul. The constant calculation of risk versus reward is ingrained in your very being. You observe a group of wealthy tourists, clearly not Romans, perhaps Greeks or Egyptians, marveling at the Pantheon's architecture. They speak in hushed, reverent tones, occasionally pointing upwards at the oculus. One of them, a woman in rich, flowing robes, pauses near you. She looks at you with a distant, almost melancholic gaze, then drops a surprisingly heavy coin into your bowl, a denarius. Your heart leaps. It's an incredibly rare occurrence, a true windfall. You quickly tuck it away, a burst of warmth spreading through your chest. This single coin represents several days of meager meals, perhaps even a chance at a warm, if flea-ridden, bed for a night. The afternoon wears on, the crowd slowly thinning as the sun begins its descent. This is often a less fruitful time for begging. As people are focused on returning home, you try to summon what little energy you have left, to maintain your posture, to project an image of quiet suffering rather than aggressive demand. The air begins to cool as the sun starts its descent, casting long shadows across the magnificent structure. A young street artist, sketching portraits of passers-by, notices you. He is not wealthy, but he seems to possess a certain gentleness. He walks over to you, a piece of charcoal and a small wax tablet in his hand. He doesn't offer money, but instead, he sits down before you and begins to sketch your face. You are startled, unsure how to react. No one has ever looked at you with such focused, intent interest before. He works quickly, his hand moving with practiced skill, After a few moments, he finishes, tears the sheet from his tablet, and places it gently in your bowl. It's a rough, but surprisingly accurate depiction of your tired, weary face. He smiles, a simple, kind gesture, and then returns to his own spot. This unique form of payment, a piece of art rather than a coin, sparks a thought that historians still debate: what was the role of visual representation in Roman society's perception of the poor? Were beggars only seen as objects of pity or disdain? Or did artists occasionally capture their humanity? This unexpected gift of a small portrait, a reflection of your own existence, is a poignant, almost surreal moment. It makes you feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in a very long time. As darkness begins to fall, the area around the Pantheon grows quiet, save for the distant sounds of the city and the echoes of the day's activities. You collect your meager earnings for the day, and more importantly, your precious denarius and the charcoal portrait. You find a sheltered spot against the massive, still warm stones of the Pantheon, its ancient bulk offering some protection from the night wind. You huddle there, the hunger still present, but now accompanied by a strange, almost overwhelming sense of human connection from the portrait. You carefully unroll the small drawing. The lines are simple, but they capture the weary lines around your eyes, the slump of your shoulders, the quiet desperation that has become etched into your being. It's a reflection of your truth, a tangible proof that you exist, that you are seen. This small piece of paper, more than any coin, offers a different kind of warmth. You tuck it carefully inside your cloak, near your heart. The stars begin to appear in the vast Roman sky, a shimmering tapestry of light that highlights the immense scale of the universe, and your own tiny, almost insignificant place within it. You are a small, forgotten figure in the shadow of this grand structure, a silent witness to the ebb and flow of life in the eternal city. As exhaustion finally begins to claim you, you pull your cloak around you, curling into a tight ball. The cold of the stone seeps into your bones. But tonight, there is a strange, profound sense of being acknowledged. For tonight, that is enough. You drift into a slightly less troubled sleep. The image of your own face, sketched by a stranger, a comforting presence, waiting for the harsh reality of another Roman dawn and the endless cycle of hunger, hope, and survival.